Call the meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. All members are present. Approval of the agenda. Is there any changes or corrections to the agenda? Council? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Joe.
I'll second.
Seconded by Shallon. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Approval of the minutes of the September 21, 2022 regular meeting. All received them in your packet. Is there any changes, corrections, or clarification needed regarding those minutes? Hearing nothing, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the September 21 meeting?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Heidi, second by Diane. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. This now brings us to our public open forum. This is separate from the 2 public hearings that we have. This is just concerning if someone has something else they want to bring to the council's attention. Is there anyone that wants to speak? Is there anyone that would like to speak to the council? Is there anyone that would like to speak to the council? Okay, our public open forum is closed. We will then move on to reports and presentations. Park Board report.
Okay, good evening. The Park Board met last night in regular session on Tuesday, October 4th at 5 p.m. They had a few items on their agenda. They discussed options for the replacement of the fountain in Sinclair Lewis Park. We may be doing a survey monkey on that, and we'll watch for that ahead. They reviewed the proposed fee schedule for 2023. That's something you will act on at the December meeting. They are recommending the seasonal camper contracts with a couple removals. They heard the closing on the ball field properties has been completed, so up by the arena, so that ball field project can commence. They discussed potential ATV restrictions in the campground and are looking at the 2023 project, possibly some trail refurbishing. And also they reviewed a request to purchase a fragment of some park property, but the requester wasn't in the meeting, so we did not proceed with that. They have no action items for you tonight.
Okay, questions? Okay, EDA report.
So the EDA met today in regular session. They had 2 items that they discussed. They did receive an offer for purchase of an industrial park lot. There has been a counter submitted for that. Potentially we'll have a closed session after the next council meeting to take action on that at the council level. And also received an update on the platting of the Myers property. We're in the wetland delineation phase of that. So you should be seeing some more action on that shortly. Again, they have no action for you tonight.
Okay, any questions about that? Okay, city engineer update, other than the public hearings we've got?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. On the capital improvements project, the paving on phase 3 started about noonish today. They're working from the north end on Hickman Drive going to the south. So that'll take about probably 4 days, and they intend to work Saturday at this point to continue through that. While they're doing that, there is the final tolerancing on phase 2 of the project on the gravel, and the intention is to move immediately from phase 3 into phase 2 to put that first lift between us down as well. When that's done, the intent is to move actually back to phase 3 and do that second lift of blacktop in through there. So in all total, it'll probably be 4 days and then another 2 to 3 days and then back to another 4 days of wear course, and most of that paving should be done for the year. We've started restoration is finally going again, and they're hauling black dirt and starting that restoration. That should go at least through Saturday, we understand. And we hope that they'll be back again next week to continue on that restoration for the black dirt and seeding and those kinds of things. But middle of next week, they'll be back to do some of the repairs of the concrete work. There were some driveway aprons that were damaged from rainfall. Those kinds of things are going to be cut out and redone. There's some curb that has to be redone, those kinds of things. And just to be clear that when they're redone like that, we're not paying for that again. Those are things that are their responsibility to do it, and we only pay once for those kinds of things. So, but they'll be back to do those repairs. So that's kind of where the major things on that project. The South Industrial Park, they're finishing hauling the gravel in right now, so all the curbs in at this point. They come back and finishing tolerancing and getting all the gravel in there. That's probably another 2-3 days worth because they don't have a lot of trucks, so it's going fairly slow, but they're hauling in gravel through there. I believe once to someplace in the paving up here, it may be the same crew, it might be someone else, we're not quite sure at this point. There's just a contractual issue yet with down there, but someone will be paving down there, but it might be from this group coming from here down to there to do that paving. So we might see that another, probably not next week, probably the week after perhaps, that they might try to slide that in. So we'll see depending on who actually does that work. Also, all the seeding, it probably should have been done today. If not, it'll be finished tomorrow morning, but that should be all done out there. And there's actually a building going up out there, and the one up in the northeast corner, that one's actively being worked on and being put in the ground, so things are going well. There's still some components of the lift station that need to be done yet, and that's kind of about it. So we anticipate that they'll make their completion date at the end of the month, but it'll probably be getting close. Maybe we'll have a week to spare thereabouts if things go well. There's a little bit of work. There's a retaining wall, a small retaining wall that has to be put in yet, a little bit of fence over top of an outlet control structure, and that's pretty much it for the work that remains out there. So I'd ask if there's any questions of me.
You mentioned second lift, but is there still a final lift that might be held off until next year?
The final lift on Phase 1 and Phase 2, because that was utility work that was done through there, so that is a next year's project to get those on, like we typically do. But the ones that was not utility work, then that will just be, they can turn right around and do the second lift right on top of it. They do have to raise iron in between, so that's what, they'll give them a little gap while they're doing the other Phase 2 to raise the iron on Phase 3, and then they'll go back up and do that last lift on Phase 3.
And I only mention that for anybody who might be here wondering why there's just that bump and wondering when the finished work will be done.
Yeah, right. We never raise the iron when there's snow coming, so we never do that for the winter session. So that'll get done yet this year.
Any other questions? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Keith. We'll recess our regular meeting. We have 2 public hearings that we will enter into tonight. We have 2 public hearings before us this evening regarding first the assessment of delinquent accounts and then the assessment of the 2022 street improvement project. It is our intention that everyone has the opportunity to be heard. If you wish to speak, please sign in on the sign-up sheet at the back of the room. The procedure is as follows. Presentation by staff, followed by questions of staff, then public input. Raise your hand. When recognized by the mayor, approach the podium and state your name and address for the record. State your comments and position. No one will be allowed to speak a second time until everyone has had a chance to be heard. Then first, we will hear questions for clarification. Then second, public in favor of the proposal. Third, public speaking against the proposal. After everyone who wishes to speak has had the opportunity to be heard, the hearing will be closed. After closure of the public hearing, the council will deliberate and take action as appropriate. Members of the audience do not participate in the council's discussion unless a majority of the council concedes to hear additional information or questions. The hearing is now in session. The first one is assessment of delinquent accounts.
Okay, so the City Council on September 7th, at the regular meeting, called for a hearing to be held on tonight, October 5th, to consider the assessment of unpaid utility and service bills. State statute allows for the city to apply certain unpaid bills or service charges against taxes. A listing of the proposed assessments is attached in your packet. a total of $2,827.03. As you can see, that is divided among 14 different properties, and 8 of those are for sidewalk repair, 5 of them are for snow removal, and 1 is a collection for the public utility. Included in that is the $100 admin fee of each assessment when we assess toward the county. So the total amount of utilities and unpaid bills is $1,427, but then when we send them to the county, there's that extra $100 that gets added, so there's a total of $2,827.03. Initially, there was 20 properties. We sent the notices out, 6 of them came in and paid. These 14 are the ones that are remaining. I do have one letter that was sent in that I'll read into the record as well, if you're ready for that now, otherwise if you have any questions.
Council have any questions? Okay, go ahead, Vicki.
Okay, so the one letter I did get was from Ron Schneider. He's at 725 Sinclair Lewis Avenue. He says, I don't consent to adding anything to my taxes, especially for snow removal charges on your sidewalk that you own. Get rid of these charges. Don't be assessing anything, period, on my taxes. I don't consent. So I look at that as kind of an appeal or just an objection to it. So I just wanted you to be aware of that, and that is for the sidewalk snow removal assessment that he had received.
Okay.
And that's the only one I have.
That's the only one. Questions of staff about any of the charges? Wise, then we will open it up to the public. Is there anyone here that wants to speak concerning the delinquent accounts? In favor or against? Is there anyone here that wants to speak in favor or against the delinquent accounts? Call a third time. Is there anyone here that wants to speak in favor or against the delinquent account hearing? Okay, any last minute questions from the council? Okay, we will move on to the second assessment of the 2022 street improvement project. Vicki?
Okay, so this is our city engineers, Keith Yap and Chuck Bozer. They're going to actually lead the public hearing with a PowerPoint, and then we will have question and answer time, and then also time for public comment. I do as well have a couple letters to read into the action on that one. You all have the assessment roll that was included in your packet. You were given an updated one tonight. The one tonight includes some credits for sidewalks or services that people had done in the recent years, and so we gave them credit for the unused life of that. So that's why you will see a few adjustments to that. The total amount to be assessed against the adjoining properties is just about $1.5 million. This includes $210,000 of adjoining city properties, so we include our property in the assessment rolls. So not only do we pay our 65% of the project on that, but we also pay the other 35% that would normally be assessed if that was a private owner. Some people had asked the question whether you go by the park and the campground, if all that gets rolled into the assessment for the balance of the property owners. It does not. We get the assessment as a property owner. I just wanted to clarify that. A few people had asked that question because our frontage on this project is quite significant. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Chuck. He'll follow through on the public hearing. I don't know if Keith's got some question and answers as well. And then we'll get back to the action afterward.
Okay, before Chuck starts, I'm going to just kind of give some information here as far as what the city council has done for this project. We had the preliminary assessment hearing, and them figures were based on what the engineer had thought was way higher than it would be. So we went with that. The bids came in at over $1 million more than what the preliminary budget was. So at that time, we reduced the scope of the project to try to bring it down, so not everybody was affected. We changed the assessment. Instead of a 50-50 split where you would pay 50%, we reduced it to 35%. And we also, on assessment payment, we went from 10 years to 15 years, trying to do everything possible to help do this, because after we had the preliminary and we got the bids, that's when the price increase on everything went up, and I think pipe alone went up probably 200%, based on what preliminary bid was, and we thought that was. So it isn't like your voices were falling on deaf ears. We did everything at our level right now to be able to reduce the costs and try to explain it. Not that that's going to make the numbers go away, but it's something that I needed to explain to you is how we came about them. So, Chuck, if you want to start your presentation.
Yes, Council, Mr. Mayor. Audience, my name is Chuck Bozer, Stantec.
You want to hold that up closer to your mouth?
Yep, with the city
Thank you.
engineer. I'll just be going through a short presentation discussing in detail on the final assessments for the 2022 capital improvements project. Just to recap the project areas, this is what this slide shows. The streets in red are part of the full reconstruct project area. The streets in green are part of the reclamation project area. And then the streets you see in purplish blue, those are the streets that we removed with change order number 1 after we received the bids to make the project scope smaller and closer to what we had for original estimate. Just to review some goals that we're accomplishing with this project. The infrastructure in this area is very old. Water main kind of lacked capacity and fire flows for the area. It was from the 1960s. Sanitary sewer was actually older than the water main. Storm sewer, we were able to increase the system to handle the capacity for a 10-year rain event and also improve the quality of the stormwater runoff into Sauk Lake. The streets in this project area, they were aging and deteriorating. Some project areas such as Cedar lack curb and gutter. The reclaim project area, its pavement basically lost its flexibility, and you saw large transverse cracks and had some issues with the curb and gutter and stormwater runoff in that area. We were also able to make some connections for the sidewalk and pedestrian pathways throughout the project area, where there were some gaps in that. Other goals that were accomplished with this project, we were able to relocate the RV dump station to the south side of Park Road, kind of help eliminate some congestion with the boat landing traffic. We were able to repave the boat landing parking lot. Again, that pavement was aging and deteriorating as well, and we were able to improve the lane width for the driveway around the fish cleaning shack. Park Road and Hickman Drive intersection, we had some issues with turning movements there. Sight distances, we were able to improve the turning movement for the westbound traffic on Park, make it a perpendicular angle, and also we were able to lower the hill on Willow to improve some sight distance for both traffic, southbound on Willow and westbound on Park. So that helped that safety of that intersection. We added street parking along Pacific Street on the south side, north side, between Cedar Street and Willow. And then also we're connected some pedestrian pathways along Hickman Drive and Park Road. So that'll really connect the existing pedestrian ways that were in that area. This slide summarizes the different assessment categories we had for this project, which included reclamation, street, sidewalk, sewer and water services, and storm sewer. The second column you see identifies the project costs included for each of those assessment categories, the total units associated with those categories, the actual rate, and then the assessable percentage. So as the mayor mentioned, with past projects, the assessable percentage was 50%. Before this project, the city revised their city ordinance and reduced that assessment from 50 to 35. Sewer and water services are assessed 100% per city ordinance policy. And the right-hand column you see are the proposed unit rates for those assessments. And this slide kind of shows the timeline of this project and what the mayor mentioned before and the increase in construction prices we saw. So the first column, we see the feasibility report estimates and those proposed rates. In the middle column, you'll see the post-bid and change order, the proposed rates. You'll see a large jump in particularly the sanitary water services. So we primarily saw unprecedented increase in material costs, piping, and other materials associated with utilities. Actually, the reclamation and street work, for the most part, was pretty close to our estimate. In the right-hand column, you'll see the proposed final assessments, and those rates are, some of them are actually slightly lower than the post-bid and change order one we did after the bid. This slide shows what the accessible cost to the average size lot in the full reconstruct project area. And the average lot that we're using for this is a 66-foot frontage by 160-foot depth lot. And the average assessment is just under $13,700. This slide shows what the average, or the accessible cost to average size lot in the reclamation area. In this reclamation area, there's a lot of different size lots, so we kind of used the average width of a lot up there, which is 125 feet, and that assessment is just under 3,200. So this slide shows what the percentage of the project costs for the full reconstruct area between accessible costs, city costs, and PUC costs. So accessible costs for this project is 26.5% of the total project cost, which is actually lower than some past projects where we've seen closer to 30%, which we were expecting since we reduced the accessible percentage from 50 to 35 with this project. City costs are 38.4%, and the PUC costs, which is sewer and water, mains and utilities, those are 35.1% of the total project cost. And the total full reconstruct project cost is just over $4.8 million. This slide shows what the percentage difference for the reclamation project and accessible costs are right at 35%, and city costs are right at 65%, and the total project cost for the reclamation project area is $790,000. So that's all the information I had on the project. We can open it up for questions with the council if we want to review anything in further detail. I think that's the first.
Okay. Questions from the council to staff?
I did have one question. I guess I haven't looked back at minutes to review that because it wasn't included in the packet, but the dump station, I thought that we had taken that out of the initial project.
No, it was not.
No, that was left in, and then that's 100% city cost too.
Correct.
We had proposed on a sample design for new our sewer dump and water hookups, but we chose to just reuse what the existing was. So city staff is, the water hookup and sewer fittings, we just bring those over. So there was a little bit of a reduction from original design, but that was kept in.
Right. Any other questions? Okay. The one thing I did fail to tell you is, we've got different formulas for different size lots and stuff, and if you're on a corner lot, you basically pay 50% of your long side, and the rest is all by the city. So if you got both sides of if you're on a corner lot and you had both streets done, you get charged 35% of the short side of your lot, and then it'd be 35% of half of the long side of your lot. and then the city picks up the rest of that. So even if you get if you understood how I did that.
Yeah, there's
I'm close, okay. Trying to explain that one's a little different, but.
So what the mayor's trying to say is, there's a city ordinance policy on different types of lots, all the way from a standard square lot to a curved lot, which we see up in Hickman, to a triangle lot, to a cul-de-sac lot. Every one has a different formula for calculating your frontage. And we saw a lot of variation in lot types on the phase 3 of the reclamation project area. So if you have questions on that, we can go through that and explain to you what type of lot you have per city ordinance policy and how we came up with your frontage.
Keith?
Yes, corner lot is another one as well. So a corner lot, your frontage is your short side of your lot. And so you'll be assessed for that full frontage on the short side. And you'll get assessed also for, if your side lot is over 150 feet, you'll get assessed for that overage. It's called side lot overage. Some of them have that, some of them don't. So you'll be assessed for the front short side, and then if your side lot is over 150, that'll get added on as well.
You said that much better than I did. Any other questions, comments? Otherwise, we will open this up to the public. Is there anyone that would like to come up and speak and needs clarification or needs speak in favor or against the proposal?
Name and address.
Hello, my name is Robin. I live on Willow Street. I just have a question as far as how this works as far as with my mortgage. Does it automatically get updated through them? Do I have to make a call? How does that work as far as like with the tax increase? Because I pay my taxes through my mortgage.
Okay.
227 Willow Street, South.
So,
So on the mortgage, this is gonna come out on your property taxes. So when you get the final notice assessment, you should contact your mortgage company and let them know that you're gonna have this proposed increase so that they would adjust the escrow payment that you're making to fund your escrow. And it's better to let them know as soon as you get that final assessment, so when they get the tax bill, you don't have to make that all up in a shorter period of time.
So I haven't gotten the final assessment.
No, that'll come after this meeting if they adopt the assessment or if there's any amendments or whatever. You'll get a final number.
At that time too, I could possibly like work it out where I could pay off the amount that I would owe within the 30 days like this.
Right, that is one additional thing is we'll give you till November 15th. If anybody wants to pay it off before November 15th with no penalty and no interest, you can do that here at City Hall. Otherwise, we'll send it into the county. And following that, any year you could come in and pay off the balance. It's just that the first year there'll be no interest until November 15th. So.
is there anyone else that would like to come up, speak to the council, needs clarification, or speak in favor or against? State your name and address, please.
My name is Roger Boyning, and I live at 612 Hickman Drive. And I'm appealing the assessment, but my appeal is not your costs. My appeal is in regards to the calculation of the number of frontage feet for the property that's being assessed. And to explain this to you, I'm being assessed because I'm on a curve, which I can prove that it's a very small part of my property is on a curve. But I have a pie-shaped lot. I have 105 feet on frontage on the road and about 300 feet in the back. My understanding of your policy is that you go to the middle of the property and assess it at that footage, which means I have 105 feet of actual frontage footage, but but I'm being assessed for 160 feet. So I'm being assessed for another whole lot someplace. I don't know why its policy was put this way. It's to help the people on the other side of the curve, so is what I was told. So it's detrimental, you know, I gotta pay for that. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. But that's not why I'm up here. I want to know the process. I want clarification on the process. I'm going to appeal this. So my understanding is when you finally do your final, yeah, this is the way it's going to be, then I have to take it to the county court, if it's my understanding. And I need to know the process of that, and I can probably get that at a later date. I'm just saying that process should probably be explained. So if people can't get the satisfaction through the council, that what's the process going forward? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Vicki, can you explain or how that all works? Just to solve some questions I'm sure people have.
And I have already spoken to Roger and his wife, and they have filed an appeal, which had to be received by tonight in writing, which they had done. And so because they are an appeal, if you adopt the assessment tonight, you would set that one assessment aside, and then the first step would be to meet with them. And if we can't get satisfaction, then their next step is to go to county court. And we've sometimes been able to settle with people, and sometimes we haven't. So it's just it's a process that's laid out in state statute that we follow. And so that's really all it is. It's not that difficult. It's just one more step that we go through. And it gives them one more opportunity to be in front of you more on a one-on-one basis to understand the procedure and go forward from there.
Okay. Council have any questions about that? No. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak in favor or against or needs clarification?
My name's Dan McDonald. I live at 128 Willow Street South. Couple of questions I have. First of all, how did Phase 3 get ahead of Phase 2? It's like, you talk about paving down on Hickman Drive. We don't even have sidewalk up on Willow Street. I tore out my driveway and sidewalk back when, so it could get redone, and they don't have sidewalk yet, so I can't do my driveway or anything like that. And, you know, to me, it's like the concrete work should have been done a long time ago. You guys sent out monthly letters, sent out a letter that curb and gutter was supposed to start the 15th of August, never started till, what was it, the 15th of September, 5 weeks later. So now all of a sudden, like you say, Phase 3 is way ahead of Phase 2. And I think for as many people came to the meeting when this originally started back in 2021 and complained about the thing, now everybody's got a 40, 45, 50% increase. Shouldn't there have been a meeting as soon as you guys knew there was that big of an increase? Instead of sending us all a bill at the end of the thing and going, hey, guess what you get to pay now? So I think that's totally wrong of you guys to do that to everybody in the city, and I too ain't giving up my right to take this to court. Just letting you know verbally or whatever, because it said verbally or just get a letter, and I didn't bring a letter down tonight or whatever, but you know, this is kind of ridiculous to, everybody's, you know, expecting one bill and you're kind of planning for that. And all of a sudden you guys do the project, oh, here's what you get to pay, and it's 50% higher. It's like, to me, if that's that far off, somebody should lose their job. It's like, that's pretty bad. So
Okay.
that's what I can say about that.
All right, thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak to the council?
Michael Hessian, 221 Maple Street. I was just wondering, Maple Street does not have no storm sewer, and we got billed for it. Maple Street has we had no storm sewer put in our street as far as I know, but we still got billed for it. We never got no breakdown of the final assessment, where the money's going and everything like that, so just wondering. Because
Okay.
Maple Street goes downhill like this, so there was no need for a storm sewer, so why are we paying for a storm sewer? Thank you.
So on Maple Street, there's storm sewer inlets at the intersection of Maple and Second that collect that storm runoff. Storm assessments is per your lot area, and how that's calculated. So it does drain to that intersection and drains into the city stormwater or storm sewer. If that answers that question.
Okay. Anyone else want to speak to the council?
Good evening, Mark Roberg, 111 Willow Street. First thing I want to say, of all the casual dealings with Stan Tech, they've been very polite and considerate and answered questions really good, so I'm really happy with that. But yeah, it does sort of get back, when you know there was going to be this overage, what good are bids if you're not held to it, or so nothing gets locked in, or I can't make it work. Sure.
So just again on the timeline of this project, we did a report with a cost estimate early summer of 2021.
Yeah.
And that was an estimate at that time, and there was such an unprecedented increase in material prices you saw in the lumber industry, consumer products, and it affected all the way to construction prices. So, and that happened kind of last winter. We decided to go out for bids and to get a hard quote. And at that time, once we had a hard quote and a bid, we reduced the project scope at that time.
We are paying bid costs.
Yes, we are paying,
When was that bid?
and that was bid
March.
early April of 2022.
So it's been 6 months, you guys knew it was going to be this high.
Since then,
Yeah, and we just found out 3 weeks ago. So, not happy with that. And then also, I do got a question as far as the interest rate. Is that something that's front-end loaded like a house, or is that straight across the board interest?
Flat rate.
Okay. Okay. I think that's the 2 items there. Was there ever there's no option for, saying we don't accept your increase? Are you, then there is no use for bids if you're not going to hold the person that gave you the bid. Supposedly, in our meeting way back when the first one, that they shot high because they saw it coming, and they still fell way short. But there's no accountability for the people you deal with.
we're in contract with
Yeah.
those bid prices. So, once we got the bid prices in April, that was a signed contract, so we're.
But did you question
Well,
it? Shocked.
well, we received probably, I would say 6 to 8 bids.
Oh, okay.
At that
To
time.
me, it seemed like a one.
Sure, and city, government laws to go with a low bidder for government work, so that's when you choose your low bidder at that time, so.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Chelsea. I live at 215 Elm Street. I guess I'm kind of wondering, my question was kind of asked a little bit, but my boyfriend actually works at MnDOT, and his job primarily is to make sure bids are within reason, that they don't go over, and if they do go over, his responsibility is to contact people and to make sure to find out who's paying for this, to make sure they are within reason. And he believes that someone within this job should have been watching that. So I guess my question to you is who's responsible for watching that? And why didn't we get notified sooner? We
Okay.
got how many monthly letters, kind of like he was saying, about like what phase we're on, what's going on, what was happening at that time. And never once in there did they say that we were over. Also, I just bought my house, so I actually came within this project kind of middle, and it was quite disappointing. Actually, Sauk Center really disappointed me with how they handled everything.
Okay. Basically, Chuck, we're still in line with what was bid. There was no overage as far as the bid, it was the price. What's that?
No,
We only bid once.
it was an estimate.
It was, the first one was
The
an
first one was the
estimate,
estimated costs.
estimated cost, then we got the bids, and it was way higher. That's when we did the scope back, we changed the number of years to pay back and stuff, and it's still, yes, it went up considerable. And maybe,
My question would be, so the previous owner actually paid for my assessment, and that was in my purchase agreement. And I'll tell you, it was, so originally he got to pay the estimate, and it was $95,72.33. And now I got a bill for $4,420. So it proves right there that since I bought my house in June, it went up $4,220, in which I'm now responsible for that, but originally the previous owner was responsible for that. So do you see how it's kind of anchoring, because I wasn't even going to be responsible for any of it,
right,
but now I bought this house in the middle of the project, which I chose that, not knowing anything about this, not knowing that we're over, not knowing nothing. So being a new homeowner, now I get this bill, and I'm like, the only other choice I have is to do an interest rate of 4.8% for 15 years. So now if I ever resell my house, now I'm like, oh, here's a beautiful house, but you're gonna have a lot of higher assessment money onto your taxes, when I didn't even know any of this was even going up.
right.
So definitely
Okay.
communication really sucked.
Okay. One of the things when it came back was we also, like the sewer and water mains were low. None of us really, you can call it excuses on our part or my part or whatever. None of us have a crystal ball to see if the prices are gonna go down next year. We've got a sewer system that was on Willow that I bet, at least 30% of the people had to put new services in. And there was no guarantee that the main was gonna stay there, that it was gonna be holed up. If it collapses at any point in time, then you get, 20 houses with sewage in their basement. That cost, just insurance charges and everything else coming back, plus is all gonna be on the property owner. And we felt, going along with what we did, we were going to actually be doing a favor, because we can't see into the future. If that sewer system collapses, then each and every one of you it's gonna be paying. And it's not, the city isn't gonna be, we're gonna fix it, do our part, insurance will cover a little bit, but basically it's all gonna fall on the homeowner. That was a question that us as a council had to kick around. Do we take that chance? As of right now, some people have said lumber has gone down. Yeah, it's gone down, but steel went right up. So it equaled out. Everything's fluctuating right now, and no one knows the future. But in the meantime, we had water and sewer system that was 60, 70 years old. Do we ignore it? I don't know. So, just continue to speak.
All right, my name is Mike Noe, I live at 202 Walnut. So, the original estimate came in at about 5.8 million, a hair over that. Now, this contract that was from the May 18th minutes, was that the final contract amount for $6,495,562?
Yeah, it should,
You said
whatever
you did
the,
not go over, right? The contracted amount? Okay, that amount, of the original contract, and this was before the 20%, deduction because of the parts of the project that weren't done, is only about a 10% increase. Then why did at least we end up with a 30% increase? Across the board, the project went up. I mean, if you compare original estimate to original contract, you're only talking about 10%. But our assessment went up over 30. So I guess I'm trying to figure out why, since the contract only went up from the estimate, which is what the original assessment estimate was based on, only went up 10%, and of course the 20% for the reduction in the project size, did the assessments go up in excess of that 10%? Does that make sense?
So, as I discussed in the presentation, the bulk of the cost increases we saw last winter were in construction, pipe utilities. And that directly reflects into your sewer and water services, which is where we saw the largest jump. We saw over 200% increases in those types of the copper piping that bring your water service to your sewer, your Schedule 40. Those were the highest jump that we saw, and those assessments jumped over double.
So that's not considered in the final contract price here?
I think what he means is that the breakdown of assessment and how it comes to sewers, if you're going to break it down to your street, your curb gutter, that sort of thing, the sewer costs are 100% assessed to the homeowner per property, whereas other pieces of reconstruct are divided out between city and property owner. So seeing the largest increase is going to affect the homeowner directly rather than being spread out amongst everyone equally.
So because, what you're saying is because the material cost went up, even though the contract didn't go up, we pay a larger percentage.
Keith would like to touch on that. He just raised his hand.
I think the issue you're talking about is the percentages of the overall project only went up a certain percentage, but each individual category, remember that was showing up here, whether reclamation, whether that, those go up at different amounts. Some didn't go up hardly at all, and some went up substantially more. Unfortunately, those areas, as Chuck mentioned, those are especially on the sewer and water services, which unfortunately, by policy, the homeowner pays 100% of, went up the highest percentage. So
Chuck,
you're paying larger on those. So it's not an equal, even though it's 10%, some of those you're actually paying a higher percentage thereof. Maybe you can show that, Chuck.
So, who's getting a deal out of this?
Well, no one's really getting it.
What it boils down to is that if I'm paying 30% based on material increased prices, then somebody else is getting a break somewhere because the lion's share of the cost of this contract is going on to those that have no services, right?
Well, everyone generally has one service, so everyone's kind of paying for that. If there might be a few that don't have services, I can't recall, but very few. But everyone's paying for streets, everyone's paying for the storm sewer. Everyone's paying, well, I guess the streets and the storm sewer, and those that are, almost everybody is paying for a sanitary service, water service. There are a few people that put in new services. As an example, they're getting a reduction because they just put in a new one, so they're getting a credit for the amounts that they essentially put in before.
So they didn't see it as a contract?
Yeah.
There's other costs?
Yeah, there's also, if you're just looking at the bid costs, there's other costs of that. There's costs of, first of all, the city administration, cost of the interest that goes on top of it. There's cost for our services. I'll be blunt about that. I mean, we don't work for free, so those costs go on it as well. So those things are included on top of those costs there. So you got to make sure you're looking at not construction costs, but project costs, which includes all those what we call indirect costs as well. So you can't compare, you make sure you're comparing either construction costs to construction costs or project cost to project cost. Okay? Does that make sense?
I guess, but, okay, then, why did we just see a dollar value when the original estimate at least broke it out? Because that is a blow, you can't deny that.
Right.
I mean, for us particularly, it was a 30%, I'm sure some people here had more than a 30% increase. I mean, this is just, we get a letter with an address and a dollar value and no other explanation. At least with the estimate, you gave us a cost breakout to some extent. It would have been a little bit more understandable if there was some explanation behind it.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Judy Castriba, 816 Second Street. Mayor Stone, I reject your explanation at the beginning when you said that you did everything in your power to keep costs down. I remember last year when we had the preliminary assessment project meeting, the whole room who lived along Second Street said no sidewalk. People were concerned about the price of the concrete going in and what it would cost. Totally ignored by the city council. All of a sudden, we have this sidewalk that is an expensive sidewalk. Nobody wanted it except for the city council members. Nobody. I just sat here, and nobody on Second Street said, we want a sidewalk. They were concerned about the cost. At the time already, there was discussion about the cost of the concrete, the cost of all of the infrastructure going in. The sidewalk was not necessary. People said, we have a fabulous bike trail. People walk on it. You know what? That's where people walk. I can tell you the only people who walk on the sidewalk, no one. I do see a lot of people walking down the middle of the street, but sidewalk, no one's there. That could have been an expense that was cut out. We have a beautiful bike trail behind Second Street. The city council were the only people in this room that wanted the sidewalk. No one on Second Street wanted it, and yet everyone on Second Street is now stuck with a price that is unaffordable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sheila Eek, I'm at 724 Second Street, 2 houses down from Judy. She beat me through it. I'm also going to comment about the sidewalk. I remember majority of the neighbors did not need the sidewalk. We have the main traffic going already on the bike trail. And when people did walk on our frontage, it was down the street, and I always did too. It was just more comfortable. And I remember the council said that they'd still put it in the project because it was funds that you could get from the state. I understand why they put it back in. But now we go down the sidewalk, go for walks in the evening. There's like 3 or 4 homes. You have to get off the sidewalk and walk in the street because their homes are already too close to the street. And now the sidewalk makes their driveways too short and their cars sit on the sidewalk. So you can't go all the way down the sidewalk. You got to get off and walk on the street. So I just continue walking on the street like I always did. So we could have saved a lot of expense with not having that sidewalk in. And I agree with Judy, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, David, Jill's husband. I guess my question tonight is, I agree with the sidewalk, and I don't agree with it being there. My question is, when they poured the concrete into the sidewalk, they didn't pack underneath there. Why was there a reason why they didn't do that? They're doing it on the second phase of the project. They're packing the ground and pouring the concrete on top of packed ground. Why didn't you do that on Second Street?
Well, it is a standard practice to compact, so they put class 5 underneath the sidewalk and compact it and pour it, so I can't speak directly for the part you're talking about, but.
My question, I guess, is who inspecting the work being done?
Well, we are. We also have the sidewalks under warranty, so if there were to ever crack.
How long is the warranty?
2 years.
Impact that ground, good foundation, the sidewalk, I would tear it out, refix it, my other expense, yeah.
Well, it is something we inspect, so Yeah, and if it cracks in the next 2 years after substantial, or prior to 2 years after substantial completion, no, it'll be redone for free.
No, but we have 30 years, our thing is 15 years. Yeah, the assessment.
Well, I want to make it, just here, you understand it, so if I come to City Hall in 3 years and complain about my sidewalk, you want to fix, that you're aware of. Second thing I have is, all them cable lines, how come the poles and stuff are not? We got one street light working, cables there, they never put the cable on the ground, they're putting the poles. You told us it was all going to be underground wiring. Where are you at that stage? Why is it done?
So on Second Street there, the end game plan is to have the city electric utility bury their power line. Charter is gonna go joint trench with them. So it's still a work in progress. Charter had some issues with getting conduit this summer. They couldn't get it, so they delayed their construction there. But eventually that'll all be buried, and those poles, if some are cut off, maybe they'll get pulled. Sure. So we can do that after. So.
Yeah, you were born on these all the time.
Yep, they're gonna bore. So. Yep. They'll be boring.
Okay. My biggest thing is who's gonna stand behind that sidewalk.
Okay. Next.
Shields, 702 Second Street. A little bit about the sidewalk. We lived there 45 years. I had trees planted in the front yard when my parents died, cut them down, put a sidewalk in that's almost on our front porch. And the sidewalk goes down to a block from the main street, and then it stops. It goes nowhere. And it can't go to the main street because that block's too far up. And so there won't be a sidewalk that goes from our sidewalk to the main street. There won't be one. So it's a dead-end sidewalk. And down on the other end, on Willow Street, it goes down the same way. And it's on a dead end as far as the sidewalk. It doesn't go left, it doesn't go right. And so that doesn't make any sense to me at all. And to lose those trees was already devastating enough. But now my question is about the 4.5% interest on this money. You know, that's a lot of money we have to pay interest on. Are we taking a loan from the city or from the county? Why do we have to pay 4.5% interest on top of this big amount of money? Most of us can't afford to pay it off in 30 days. I mean, that just doesn't happen when you're retired, you know, unless you want to spend all your money on that, you know. So I want to know who we're paying this interest to.
Okay. Basically, it's going for the bond payment.
So the city had to borrow money to do this project, and so we're paying interest on that loan that we borrowed. So we got a bond over 15 years, and that tied into your 15-year assessment. So that's where the interest comes from.
We're paying that interest?
Well,
And the city isn't?
no, we're paying the interest
Yeah.
to the bond, and then you're paying the interest to us.
So we can take out your loan?
This assessment is like this is your project cost, and we are willing to finance it for 15 years for you. And so basically, we're recouping interest that we're paying by collecting the interest from you. So it's kind of passing through. The one thing, and I don't know if you noticed on your notice, we do have a deferral program for people, low-income, elderly, disabled. That was in your notice, and what that does is it defers that assessment until you're no longer homesteaded. Maybe you've sold your home or retired, or you're not living there anymore. And so there is a way with no interest to defer that. And I do have a few people that have applied. The council will take action on that at a future meeting. So that is
People,
an option that you
please.
have. So, but yeah, the interest is just a pass-through. We borrowed money to do the project, and now rather than you paying it up front, we're allowing you to pay us over time with interest.
Same rate?
There is a little bit of upcharge on the rate. The state statute says 2%. We are doing about 1.2%
Right.
difference. Why? Because there's some, when people pay off, when they pay off up front, then they're not paying interest, but we still are, because we can't like make payments ahead of time on the bond. So in the end, it works out that generally we try to collect as much interest as we pay on that 35% that we're assessing. On the 65% that we're not assessing, then we pay that interest through the levy, so.
Marty Sunderman, 820 Second Street. I'll start with saying, in the history of Sauk Center, since I worked at Public Utilities, this is the first time I think this has happened. Keith will tell you that every year he assesses high enough so we don't have this fiasco.
Right.
I mean, when Keith sent out an estimate, even at the hospital project a couple of years ago, it was 10,000. When those folks got their final assessments, it was like 8,500. They're all happy. It was less than we assessed. I think the council needed to sit back here and say, this is new to us. We're assessing our customers 40, 50, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 more than their assessment that was sent to them, that was given to us previously. There was a piece here that needed to be settled down. This is new to all of us. And we're certainly the blunt of this new happening. And I think that you can say, well, in the future, we'll look at this differently. That doesn't help us. Because right now, we just got stuck in this. And I'm concerned about that. The other thing is you talked about in the project where you got the bid and then you cut some of the project out because it was too expensive, okay? It was too expensive for the city. Cutting that section out of there, that other part of Second Street, put more cost to us because there's mobilization that's in this project just for the dirt, the pipe guys, the cement guys, the dirt guys, all the guys that come in here, they have mobilization costs. Now, all those mobilization costs, if you do the whole project or part of the project, are assessed now to us. And Keith will say, well, that probably isn't true. Well, when these guys bid the bids, there's mobilization costs, and that's not cheap. So now the assessment that we got is with a smaller group rather than the bigger group. So now our costs have gone up, okay? And I just think that the water and sewer costs, these water and sewer costs are 100% ours. So they went up 200%. Instead of $900, they're $2,300 for a sewer assessment. That's 100% ours, okay? That contractor could have put those sewer costs anywhere in their project. They could have put it in the dirt work. They could have put it in the pipe work. They could have put it anywhere in the project because their cost was $1.5 million or whatever it is. Somehow, they thought, well, let's put it on water and sewer services. Let's put a 200% increase in water and sewer services, which, by the way, is 100% ours. The city pays nothing, zero on that. So that 200% goes right to us. And I think that the city is, you guys as council need to sit back and say, we need to be fair here. This is new to you guys, certainly not fair to us. But as a business in town, when I go buy a pickup and they tell me it's $30,000 or $50,000, and a year later they'll say, Marty, your pickup's here, but by the way, it's $8,000 more than they told me. That shouldn't be in Sauk Center. I think you guys as a council need to just not, and it's easy for you guys to say, well, those are the costs, Marty. We reduced the formula. We give you, instead of 50%, you went down to 35, which I understand that. That's unprecedented. I don't think that you guys have ever done that. So you're trying, but you got to understand from our point, there's some costs here that are unbelievable. And I just think that rather than just gabbling it down tonight saying, yeah, we give you a break so you guys should all be happy with that,
I think you guys need to take a little bit more time and think, because you gotta be fair to the citizens. And I don't think anybody in town, Sauk Center, is gonna say, boy, those guys really got treated good by the council. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying give us the farm, I'm not saying, oh, just give us the price that we get you quoted. I know there's some extra cost in there. But maybe 10% higher, 20% higher, not 50, 60% higher like we're looking at. And I don't think you're setting a precedence, because in the future when this comes through, you're gonna have to sit back and say, what do the citizens want? What do they really want to do? Should we sit back and hold this off a year? Maybe you should have. And if the prices came in higher, at least we knew that you give it a fair shake and said, you know what? They canceled this thing because the cost was enormous to these customers. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak?
Mary Romanowski. I am at 1026 2nd Street South. I'm also newer to the neighborhood, so I wanted the people who've been here to speak first and such. So I just have a couple of items. My first question that I had, and I've asked this to the city, but I'm going to ask this to Stantic, is in my area of 2nd Street South, while the excavators were doing the final sewer and water, it just so happened that their excavating shovels pulled up a CenturyLink cable, and there was a zip code down in Wilmer that lost their internet for the entire weekend. And the guys that were on the project said, ooh, that's going to be spendy. And so and also Argus was also one that was affected too, but meanwhile, we had a big hole in the street for 2 weeks because they couldn't do anything because they had to wait for CenturyLink, because they also made the mistake of cutting the line at the time and not letting those wires just hang for that. And that took CenturyLink a longer period of time to repair everything. So my question is that even though I know that's insured, do these expenses also get absorbed by us in the water sewer project because this got delayed because of this incident? And also, not only did CenturyLink get affected, but also Argus. So Argus was out today fixing the line, and they had fixed it before because they got slivered and stuff, and that slowed down our stuff. So we have curbs, but we didn't have aprons in our driveway, so we have, you know, a 2-inch drop from our driveways onto the street now, you know, just waiting for things to happen. In the statement that the gentleman made about, you know, us receiving a statement and that it just had a number, I actually went down to the city and got a printout. And it was interesting because the number that was here and the printout that gave a layered look, this was less than this. So it's really important, I think, for people to understand every detail. I think it's easier to absorb some of that stuff, but when you get slapped with just a number can be a number, you know? And so even though you talk about the length and the width, and I happen to be a corner lot, I do find it interesting to see that when you have it laid out in numeration, it becomes less than the number that, you know, they just sent forth.
Thank you. Go ahead, Chuck.
She had a couple questions in there. The first part to your question on the cable hit is no, those costs do not transfer to you guys. That's part of the contractor, his responsibility. This second question about the difference in numbers, I'd have to do some research and look at why there's two different numbers shown on there. You were 1026 2nd Street.
I don't even see that number.
What's that? Let's answer these questions first. And then if there's other, we'll answer these questions first, plus I need other people to come up and before.
Travis Toms. I got a house over on 1015 Second Street. I don't live in Sauk Center, so I can see that. But basically, all I want is a breakdown of, I only got 80 feet of property there. I know it for a fact, because the house is very narrow and it's just not very big. I don't have sidewalk on my side so far, so I don't know if that's coming. But my other concern is, I have 4 other properties in this town, and they're going down Main Street coming up. And if this kind of horse shit's gonna happen, I don't want any part of it, kind of deal. So, that's why I want a breakdown, and I'm kind of on the backside because, like I said, I don't live in this town. But I've been part of this town for many years. I got a very deep family here. So that's all my question is. I would really like to see a breakdown of where this money come from or where it's at, just because I only have 80 feet of, and I don't have a sidewalk.
What was the address?
1015 Second Street. Yep.
Show you a breakdown, I'll just verbally discuss it to the council.
Sure.
So your assessment is at $13,000.
You betcha.
$46.23. So you're being assessed for 66 frontage for street, which is $4,200, a sewer and water service, and then your storm sewer is assessed based on the area of your lot. And that's $3,000, which those 4 items compute to that.
So how is it that my lot faces the other way, then I'm getting sucked for storm sewers that's not going on the right way? We're in sand.
Yep, it's the way the policy is written. Everybody pays for the share of the storm sewer based on an area for that size
All I'm
lot.
saying is it gets to the point where, I mean, I know we're in this municipality, if you're getting real close to where someone can throw a well in and get real, you know, and I understand how it works, but I mean, you know, a well and septic, if you're getting to this point, is where I'm at.
Okay, thank you. You got the answers for the previous speaker?
Maybe we can check with her, as the numbers we have match, I'll try to, let me look at the numbers.
Okay.
Perhaps I can meet you
Yep.
back here.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak to the council? Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the council? Mark, no one else wants to speak, I don't think. Okay,
Just a couple, Mark Broberg, 111 Willow, follow-up, couple questions there. Watched YouTube from the September 21st meeting, I think, and Heidi brought up the 30-40% increase. And was it you that was sort of caught off guards and was going to check into that, or?
I was caught off guard because I hadn't heard.
Yeah, you were, but, and then when you relayed it, somebody here was, well, I'll check into that.
So I think the letters had just gone out prior to that meeting, and that's why I was alerted by somebody in the
Right.
community, because
Yeah.
I didn't even know.
No, I agree with you. We were shocked too, but
Right.
whoever was representing, they were not aware, and they had no answer for it.
I think that was Keith.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Keith was the one that
No,
was.
that's an answer, but.
Was that a question on the percentage or a dollar amount that you brought up? I kind of remember if you
It
had
was
a
kind of an
dollar.
overall rough estimate of increase. It was like 6,000 on one property and almost 8,000 on another
Okay.
property that they were questioning, neighbors to each other, I think, on Second Street. But I was surprised by hearing the difference, and I wasn't aware of the difference, and that's why I brought it up.
Yeah, which I thought was good. I was just surprised that the person representing seemed surprised also. Second question, we will be getting a final assessment then? Right.
Right.
And so from that, some of them did go down on the final assessment, correct?
As far as the proposed rate, you mean?
I think
So is that what we already saw, were those
The
numbers?
one that you got in your mail, that would be
Yeah.
final unless adjustments are made.
Oh.
For
Okay.
instance, some people had like credits because they had a new sidewalk we weren't aware of.
Yeah.
and we were-
So we weren't notified of the number one post bid then?
The proposed,
reclamation?
oh, post bid.
Is that what you're asking, Mark?
Yeah, well, you know.
Yeah, the post-bid change.
Oh.
From my understanding, the first letter we got with the $9,000 estimate was an estimate. And then we didn't see anything till the final, but we would at least gotten a heads up if we saw the post-bid change order number one. Correct?
Right, you were, the preliminary is what you were notified.
What?
There was not a hearing between the two.
No.
So you just went from column A to column C.
Two hearings, preliminary and final.
Why weren't we notified?
Basically,
I
state
think, you know,
statute says
things-
we don't need to. States,
Yeah, but.
I
But
know,
no, so
that's
you're
not,
saying
that's an
you
excuse.
knew it was going up that much, but you waited until the final, correct?
I can speak for myself, Mark. I did not know that it was going up that much. We were aware that the change order would affect more because it was taking less, it was taking quite a bit of city property that we changed
Right.
from the preliminary. I was not aware of the final numbers until somebody from the community told me.
Yeah,
When
so
you
I-
found out is when we found out, or actually after.
Yeah, so then I guess I can't tell who knew of the post-bid change order number one. Who knew that then?
So on that, that information was presented after the bid, and those costs were reviewed, but nothing was sent out to the residents at that time.
March.
March 2nd.
So we knew this increase way back in April, March.
When, after the post bid, when they came, when when Stantec came and said, this is what the bids came in, and we talked about reducing the scope of the project, at that time, they had what we called option two, and option two had in there, the average assessment was like 14.7 or something to the individuals. Because that was after that meeting, when you made that
Correct.
comment, I sent out to the council, the preliminary, then the option worksheet where the increase, and then the final. So
I
don't know if you didn't, you know, when we had that meeting about the cost went up, that's when we had the discussion of how much it would impact the individuals. And we had that conversation. I don't know what pieces you all picked out of that conversation, I guess. So, but it was in front of the council, but it was not mailed out at an individual basis to everybody.
I would just say, and not to defend anyone on the council, is that it maybe seemed less impactful to us.
Right,
Possibly, yeah.
right.
I think maybe if you spread it out on an average, it sounded less impactful, but when you see it individually based on the, individual person's property, it becomes more impactful, which we didn't have everyone's assessed final numbers at that point. We had an average.
And that's the same time when we decided we knew it was going to be up. We didn't know what the total impact was individually, like Heidi said. But that is when we said, well, we know it's gonna be higher. It needs to be done because we don't have that crystal ball. And that's the reason why we dropped it from 50% share to 35, and then we extended the bond from 10-year payoff to 15, and thinking that we would be able to cover that increase a little easier. And,
So those were actually done in the mid-street,
right,
those adjustments, okay. Final thing would be, other than beating up everybody, is it going to change anything? No.
Basically, in my opinion, no, but that, the appeal system,
Yeah, I agree.
the appeal system goes into effect, Maybe personally, there's times when it comes to this that we are I've thought about it myself, that we eliminate assessments totally and everything gets dropped on the city as a whole. Which, if you want to see more double-digit tax increases, property tax increases, you start dropping this type of bill on everybody without splitting it out on individual property owners. You will, I think that'd be more of an uprising than
This is small.
this is. Yeah, but it's important. That's why we do it. Sure, go ahead.
Okay. My question is, you said that we get credit if we did something, so I had like my septic replaced like 5 years ago in my sidewalk. So how do you know if you got credit for that?
Sure, what's your address?
227 Willow Street. Because my assessment is 13,792.
Give me a second.
And it was 9,000 something.
227 Willow. We have a. Because on Willow and Walnut, there were a number of residents that previously installed their sewer and water services. And I'm just looking at, in case you were on that list. Unfortunately, these are not in very easy order for me. 222 Willow?
227.
227, oh, I gotta get to the odd. Yeah, there we go. Schmidt. So you are not on the list. Your current assessment does include a sewer and water service, a new one. So I guess we could verify. Who did? Sure. Punky?
I bought my dad's house basically. He had done, I want to say like 4 or 5 years ago. And I know the guy's, his name is Lee. And then how do you want me to verify it?
And there was permits drawn in order to verify that at the city level?
We have built into ours.
Okay.
Sure.
I'm at 223 Willow.
223.
We did, and I'm trying to maintain some order here, and we can talk about it individually, but we did run into a few situations where people did replace it and they never pulled a permit, and they poured concrete and they didn't pull a permit, and it was like, well, we'd have to do some checking to find out, and that's where it fell through the cracks. Some people got permits to pour a new sidewalk. We didn't know it.
So what I'd suggest, I guess, if there's one or two of you at least, come tomorrow to the city and provide information, if you can, anything you can about what you paid, when it was done specifically, the details for it. If we can't, we'll try to, if you don't know the amount, we'll try to look up, see if there's a permit pulled of what that value was. So we can, if there wasn't a permit pulled, ultimately, that's probably going to be a council question as to how, if there's a number that we might wish to assign as a credit, but that would be something that the council will ultimately have to decide. But if you can provide that information to us, Lisa Ilgen over here, if there's anyone else in that same case, or if you're not sure if there's a deferment, just come in with your property and we can either show you that you have a deferment, or if you don't, provide that information to us. Because we've done the best we could of the information we have to provide those credits. Yep. Yeah.
You know, I don't know the protocol is, so, like, if I could get, like, with the guy who did the digging, like, Punky is all I know his name, he, like, gave you a written.
And they may have a statement, they have something in their records.
Right.
To show what is paid.
That would be good to have.
I know 5,000, I know that much for the sewer.
Okay,
Sidewalk, they did after the fact, and I know my dad had a couple of his friends do it, but that money he did sewer.
Robin, are you thinking Punky Didier? Punky Didier?
Yeah, that's who did it.
I think so.
Yep.
I believe so. Just to.
Great.
Okay.
And not Punky Brewster.
No.
Okay. Is there anyone else?
couple more things. Warren, you said that Mark's question was, is this all in vain? And you say probably is. It shouldn't be.
No. I said there's the appeal process.
The other thing is nothing against the engineering firm because they do a wonderful job, but I've always wondered, the cost was $1 million higher than we anticipated. Their fees are now went up based on $1 million. The engineering hasn't changed, the water valves, the street work, nothing has changed, except they just went up $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 because the project is up $1 million based on their fees. And I think that's something that we need to look at. If the preliminary comes in at so much and they're willing to do the job, to engineer the job for what the preliminary is, and it comes in $1 million higher, they still get their percentage on that million or 3 million, whatever it was in addition. I think that that's something for the citizens we need to take a look at.
Good point. Thank you.
I was going to bring that up.
What we did at the meeting, we said we would hold it to the feasibility level. So just a comment on that, you know, we felt the heat from these increased construction prices too. So during the meeting after the bid with the city staff, we said we would do our original fee for our estimate, so feasibility. So we are not taking that extra bump or that extra percent.
Correct.
So we did agree to our original estimate for our costs. So.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Marty?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Willow Street, 120. I just got a question about the contractor. You know, since about, I would say, August, to me, the contractor seemed like he's a weekend contractor. Nothing happens Monday through probably Thursday. They show up Friday. So Friday and Saturday, they sit there work. And you gotta sit at home. Saturday, hear that packer coming by, shaking the house and everything else. It's like, why can't they be there during the week? I'm sure they went to another project, you know, they worked like hell at the beginning, got phase 1 all done. Here we sit in phase 2, and nothing's happening. You know, we're into October. To me, the concrete work should have been all done. I used to pour concrete years ago. And so I know we're in October, it can snow, that concrete can freeze. If it freezes, it might not pop off for 2 years from now. Well, you only got a 2-year warranty on it. So if in 3 years all the top pops off because it froze, who's responsible? You gonna make the homeowners all replace concrete again because of shit? It's like, you know, this is stuff that should have been done. And to me, the city's not after the contractor enough to get there and get that work done. They're letting them come Saturdays and work on Saturdays. Everybody's supposed to be happy with that. And we shouldn't be. So everything should have been done. You know, the contracts, you know, I have a time limit. I don't know if we're past it or not or what, you know, but we're awful close to, you know, stuff not being done in time. You know, the dirt work, grass or nothing's gonna grow until next year anyways, everybody knows that, but, you know, other things still should be done.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it is an assessment hearing, but we'll touch on your comments on the, so we have certain completion dates for this project, as you probably are aware of. The completion date for phase 1 and 2 is November 1st, so they do have some time. It'll probably be tight for them to complete it, and that has them completing it up to base course of paving. The seeding and topsoil, they have a separate warranty on that, a 1-year establishment period. So next year, we're probably gonna be back doing a lot of touch-up work in your yards. So I would expect that. Phase 3, they're actually over their 25-day working requirement and kind of did that differently. That ended actually yesterday, so they are getting penalized $1,500 a day until they get the paving done on phase 3. So
shouldn't phase 2 been done before phase 3? You know, that's what I mean. Phase 2 is so far bad. We sat there for weeks after weeks with no work done. And, you know, all of a sudden, now we're just gotta be fine with it.
yeah, unfortunately, it's outside of our control. We can set up our contract and we have to work within that. But yes, I mean, it's been a struggle with us as well, working with them.
Who gets the fines?
They do.
Well, the city, it gets reduced from the, from the total project cost, so the city will see that, so. And that total is not finalized yet, but.
Okay. Is there anyone last minute comments?
Wondering about Davy, Second Street. So-
What's that?
Davy, Second Street.
Oh.
That's on the floor. On these yards, where they're putting the yards in, they talked to some of the homeowners, said they were gonna mold it, put the dirt back, but some of these yards have peaks in them where they're just filling in the gap between the sidewalk and the home. And it's just a big abrupt peak in the yards. They're not leveling them out. Is it something they're gonna fix, or they're just gonna leave that for the homeowner to do? Well, they've already put the black dirt in, and that's how it looks, and it's very unfinished. Okay, one other before you answer that one. One other. Over by the park, they put in them pump stations, lift stations, on the walk track. The two big pumps, they lift up the water, doing something. Yeah. This is the picture how they left that. 10-foot drop into a hole for 4 days. I walked down the trail, there's no fence, nothing wrong. A kid, child playing around right next to it. Who's, somebody would fall into that, fall into this big hole. Is there a safety person on these job sites, or somebody checking into that? You guys want to see this? How you like?
No, I'll take your word for it.
So, the first part was on the grading in your yard, so there's a lot of work they need to do, basically. And we've been working with them, we've got stakes, we've got paint marks, they need a lot of touch-up work, so that'll all happen yet. As far as the storm sewer, I know that sidewalk, we did have, the sidewalk signs closed, so we had that trail closed on the ends, so there shouldn't have been walking, but,
The trail's open, you want to right down. No, there's no fence on it.
Sure. So,
Okay. Okay, any last comments?
Judy Castripa, 816 Second Street. Just clarification, you said that pretty much what we have here is what it's going to be. Did I understand you correctly when it comes to the amount?
Mm-hmm.
So why are we even here then? I mean, if you're not willing to even consider, which I'm sorry, I'm not seeing that you're even willing to work with us a little bit, then why are we even sitting here? I feel like this is the same thing as happened at the meeting, the preliminary meeting, where you had a room full of citizens concerned, expressing concerns, and it was just like, okay, we listen to you now. Why are we even here then? Why do we have this room full of people? If this is all that happens at meetings when you have concerned citizens, why even show up? Maybe they don't. I don't know. This is so disappointing. You can at least try to work with us a little bit. I don't see any of you looking to work with us. Not on the interest rate, not on reducing the rates, zilcho. This has been a waste of time. Sorry, it's been a waste of time.
Thank you. Anyone like to speak? No. Any last minute comments? Any last minute comments? Comments from the council? The public hearing is now closed. We will now move on to our action items. Let them move out a little bit before I try to start.
Sure.
Okay, 7A, approve resolution 2022-78, approving the assessment for delinquent services.
So this attached resolution is the action necessary to certify the delinquent accounts discussed during the public hearing. The certification will be sent to Stearns County on November 15th, 2022. Customers will have until that date to pay in full without interest to avoid certification. The total certification, $2,827.03. This is Resolution 2022-78, approving certification of delinquent accounts.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Diane to approve Resolution 2022-79. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Joe. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. 7B, approve Resolution 2022-79, approving the assessments for the 2022 improvement project.
So this is the resolution subsequent to the public hearing to consider the adoption of the special assessment we just heard. The final assessment roll was $1,578,755, but we have had a couple adjustments to that due to sidewalk credits, and it appears we may have some more. It's collectible over 15 years with property tax at an interest rate of 4.25. Anyone can pay by November 15th to the city with no penalty. Your option tonight is to adopt, holding open the one that has the appeal and the ones that may have credits. The other option is to table this action until the next council meeting so we can bring you back a final roll with those adjustments already made. And if there's any other adjustments that you wish to make or have a discussion on, you certainly can do that. So that's your two options. Either we can adopt this as presented tonight, holding open those few that we were discussing, or you can table it and we'll have a final assessment to adopt in 2 weeks, including those adjustments and anything else. If you're inclined to do something on interest rates or anything like that that you might want to talk about. So you have a couple options in front of you.
If we table this for 2 weeks, what'll the interest rate be then? 5.5? You never know.
No, our bond rate sets, I mean,
Well,
we're
our
pretty
interest
much
rate's
pricing
locked
off,
in.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
To certify it with the county, we just still have time yet?
We certify with the county on November 15th, so.
Okay.
Do we have an option on interest rate, adjusting the interest rate? Or is that statute, how does that?
The statute says we can do up to 2, is what it has a limit. So if you look at what our actual interest rate over time is versus the interest rate we're charging there, normally we do, on our prior projects, we had done 2. This one we did about 1.08% over.
Our bond rate was 3.07?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. What's the council's wishes? Or is there more discussion?
Well, I guess I'd actually, I know a lot of our attendees have left, but I guess in addressing some of their comments and concerns that were raised at our initial hearing, as well as tonight, and Ms. Christie, yours would be kind of two of the pointed ones, is the sidewalk issue that you raised, and saying we ignored it, nobody uses the sidewalk. Part of what we're looking at from a city is, obviously the walkability and safety of all of our citizens that utilize these streets. Now, we say a lot of people just walk down the middle of the streets. Obviously we can't control people's personal decisions, but from a safety standpoint, that's not where we want them to be. Also, that's kind of the trend we're seeing in a lot of communities, is the walkability, improved safety for pedestrians as we look for a healthier lifestyle, things like that. So that was, at least in my mind, a consideration and where that came into play there. The other point you raised as far as why are we even here, why you're here is to raise these concerns. Things that were touched on that I seen was, where was the notification sooner on what these assessments would be? Certainly, if that was communicated earlier, we wouldn't have had a room full of people tonight and, felt quite as bombarded. So maybe that's something we need to discuss as far as making sure that's better communicated. So having those points raised is part of why you're here this evening, to raise those concerns and help us improve and do better, be better, I guess, as it relates to that. But as far as the assessment percentages and stuff, that's set with the ordinance, and it's just the way these costs came in. We're in unprecedented times in terms of COVID, supply chain, and we've seen the costs everywhere across the board. So, that's just where we were at, and there's no denying those streets needed to be replaced, repaired. I drive Hickman every day, and the contractor issues, I've been very frustrated with that's been gravel for 4 weeks, and I have not seen anybody really come through there either. So, I mean, I share those frustrations from the community as far as what we're seeing with the contractor there. I mean, it's been, poor job on that end, I think, so. That's just some general thoughts I had.
Okay.
I agree with Joe.
Do we?
Yeah, and to the sidewalk point, I mean, I agree with what Joe said as well. I live in a neighborhood that doesn't have any sidewalks at all, and I mean, if they would be looking at doing something like that in the future, I mean, I wish from that case that we had them where I live from a safety standpoint for the maneuverability of my family and things like that, and I understand your concern.
No, not now. Thank you anyway.
You can talk to me afterwards, or I can get you can email me or talk to me, whatever. I mean, that I'm totally, but just even looking at it from a future perspective as well as who might be in a neighborhood and how that neighborhood might be used over time as well is one of the considerations I had when making the decision.
So, do we have a motion to approve Resolution 2022-80, taking into the consideration the adjustments, or do we have a motion to table it until we get the finals?
I have one question before we would make a motion. So, once the final assessment is given, they have 30 days to pay?
Right.
So if we would wait until the next council meeting, that's going to be the 19th, so we'd be less than 30 days by that November 15th date, is that a?
Right, we would send it to the county, and then if someone paid in those last 4 days from the 15th to the 19th, then we'd have to get a hold of them and have them to pull it back.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure if we did table it, that we wouldn't have a timing issue and constraint there.
We could make that work.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure on that.
Okay. What's the council's wishes?
I'll make a motion that we approve it, but hold them other ones out that you've mentioned.
All the ones we're in discussion with
Right, those ones.
I have the list.
on the
Okay.
adjustments?
Yep.
Okay. Do I have a second? I'll second it. Just for the matter of discussion. Is there more discussion?
I guess my thought, with the motion and stuff is, if we can accommodate the timeline with the tabling, it would be nice to have the final numbers for approval would be something I'd like to see personally.
Okay. I kind of agree with you to make sure the adjustments are there. If there's any consideration at all with on the interest rate, how much of it would affect, if we could see numbers like that, maybe in that 2 weeks, if we did drop it, try to, I don't know what the dollar figure for, say, is gonna be.
Well, how would
depending on what we set at it.
I mean, how would we analyze? I mean, you're assuming certain percentage of prepays to figure out, where that allocation comes from our bond rate to the, recouped rate for the ones that are assessed interest, so.
Too many
I
variables.
suppose the only thing that we could do is assume an overall 15-year assessment at this interest rate versus, and then if we come in less, we come in less, just for comparables.
Yeah, I don't,
Meaning that if 100% of people were to spread out and use the 15 years.
Well, I think that's kind of assumed where that would be. The bigger concern is if we get a bunch of prepayments and then we assess the interest on 4 1/4 and we're not prepaying our bond, we pay the 3.07%, or we end up paying more than we recoup in terms of the interest. So that's where we'd have to look at. I know this is kind of just picking a number out of there, but what historically have we seen for prepayments percentage of a project, would you estimate?
If the dollar amounts are smaller, we get a higher percentage. So I would bet that many of the reclamation side will probably repay. or prepay. I think a lot of the others, I have several now that are deferred that we won't collect any interest on. And then we will have some prepaid. And comparing it with the project up on the north end of the full assessment ones, we probably had about 10% prepay,
Okay.
and then the others carried it over. But I would anticipate maybe 10% of this will prepay, but maybe 30 to 40% of the reclamation area would prepay.
Okay. So if we applied that and considered that for our interest rate evaluation, those percentages, we could figure out and make sure that we've got enough funding allocation there.
I think it's
Right.
worth
We already
considering.
cut it down to that 4.25 based on that scenario.
Oh, okay, so that was already considered.
That's why I came up with the dropping it,
Okay, okay.
dropping a percent was with that formula.
Okay, so, all right, so that's already in there. So otherwise we'd be at 5.07 if we went 2% above, like we've historically done.
Right. Okay. Well, we have a motion and a second on the table to adopt it and to work with the final adjustments with the people with the list that Vicky has. No more discussion. I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 3 in favor, 2 against. 7C, approve resolution 2022-80, calling for hearing on proposed amendment to city code licensing sale of cannabinoid products.
So this is a resolution calling for a public hearing. On August 3rd, the City Council passed a moratorium on the sale of edible cannabinoids, that's the THC, in Sauk Center pending the development and adoption of an ordinance regulating the licensing of establishments wishing to sell the product. Since the adoption, we've been working to develop an ordinance that will allow for the sale of the products, but would license it and provide for periodic checks to be sure only legal products are being sold. We're recommending the City Council call a public hearing to consider an ordinance for this regulation, and that public hearing would be held 1 month from now on the 2nd of November, 2022.
Questions, comments? Do I have a motion to approve resolution 2022-80?
Motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Joe,
Thanks, Joe.
second by Diane. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. 7D, accept resignation, Sauk Center HRA Board.
Diane Lycum has submitted her resignation from the Sauk Center HRA Board effective December 15th. Her term was set to expire on March 31st, 2025. A replacement will be appointed at a future meeting. So we're looking to accept the resignation of Diane Lycum from the HRA Board effective December 15th.
Do I have a motion to accept Diane's resignation?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is that board still one member shy? Like, I know when I was on it, I thought there was one other.
Yes.
So now they're going to be 2
Right.
members short. I guess maybe this is a overall broader question, but just with, I know that the park board has 1 person shy as well, and 2 of the members on the park board are also serving on the
Planning Commission.
What maybe is the reason and rationale for the shortage? Do we need to look at the people who serve on our boards and maybe increase that pay? Is a question that maybe we should have in the future. I just wanted to bring that up as something to maybe talk about getting more people involved with the process. I don't know.
As of right now, personally, I don't think pay would make a difference.
No.
Okay.
You're looking at both them boards you're looking at an hour and a half
Yeah.
out of their month. And if that's not a community concern, it should be. Everybody's basically got an opinion, but they don't want to sit and make the tough decisions. So, I don't know if that answer you got on my
It does.
soapbox.
It does. It does.
I
to
got
some
on my
extent, But
soapbox.
with the amount of vacancies, I didn't know
With
what.
the number of people that we have in this town, I would think we should have all kinds of people fighting to get on boards.
Yeah.
Instead of having to go out there and hold their hand and beg them to come in or do double duty. So, do I have a motion to accept the resignation of Diane Lycum?
Motion. I'll second.
Motion by Diane,
I'll second.
second by Joe. You can swap positions, okay? Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Approve advertisement to fill vacancy, Public Works Department.
So we developed a timeline for filling the vacancy in the Public Works from the recent retirement. It has room built into it to be modified if necessary, if things go quicker or slower. We were looking to begin advertising next week, accept applications until November 18th, review the applications the following week, and conduct interviews December 6th through 9th, consider an appointment on December 21st with a beginning work date of January 3rd. So that's if everything goes well. And as an alternative to initially filling this with a full-time position, we also talked in the Public Works Department about perhaps a part-time seasonal employee to get through this winter, and then maybe look at filling in the spring. I mean, we do have some options. We talked a little bit with the Personnel Committee ahead of the meeting as well on whether we wanted to go ahead and fill that position at this point or to work with part-times. The thing is, we've advertised for part-time seasonals and have had 0 applications. So I'm not quite certain how you want to proceed with that. Obviously, a full-time position is more attractive to applicants than someone that's going to come in once in a while. Plus, this one is a CDL required position to drive the trucks, and so that's an additional requirement that not everybody that would take a seasonal position would have. So I guess I'll leave that up to you. Have it in here set up to approve the advertisement for filling the position if you wish to do it that direction.
Questions, comments? My opinion is that we go for a full-time, see what we got. And maybe there's somebody that's could end up being seasonal. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right now, no one's interested in working, even seasonal position. So I think our hands are tied as far as.
Yeah, I mean, I would think, I mean, we're replacing a retirement of a full-time position. There's a need for that. I'd, imagine, and again, part-time positions just aren't.
Right.
People are looking for the full-time, the benefits, everything that comes along with it, and not piecemealing their employment.
Right. Okay, do I have a motion to advertise for the filling of the Public Works position?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Shallen, second by Diane. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Approve appointment of winter seasonal employees.
So as I said, advertisements have gone out for winter seasonal positions, including the arena attendant, outdoor rink attendant, and public works seasonal, and the figure skating instructor. The positions will remain open until filled, but we do have 2 returning, and that are Sarah Lino for the figure skating instructor and Dwayne Willetsko as the arena attendant. So we're looking to approve those winter seasonal appointments to begin. The arena attendant, we start putting ice in, I believe, on October 17th. And then the first figure skating class is the week after that. So we're looking to approve those 2 winter seasonal appointments and perhaps more to come.
Comments?
Does Dwayne also, does he open and close down the outdoor skating rink?
We've kind of shared that position. Dennis Christensen did it most of
Okay.
the time last year. Some of the public works guys did, Dwayne did, so we kind of rotate people through that. We are looking for someone that would kind of adopt that position, if anybody is interested in that, so.
I do have a question, Vicki. That painting on the Civic Arena,
Yes,
is that complete, or are they going to paint more on there?
that is complete.
Huh?
It's complete.
Oh, okay. Yeah, somebody asked me that today.
So the arena, I think what you're looking at is they went about 2/3 down. They
Yeah.
primed it and it did the mural, but the balance of the building wasn't painted. We're looking to get hold of that contractor and see what it would cost to continue that painting.
Oh, good.
So the background looks the same the entire
Yeah.
length of the building.
Yeah,
So
it looks very
I've had a few other
nice.
people comment on that. The mural itself is beautiful.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve the winter seasonal appointments?
Motion to approve.
No,
By
second.
Joe, second by Diane. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Approve appointment of probationary EMT.
So the following request has been submitted by Ambulance Director Kathy Strufert. She says Alyssa Zimmer has taken the EMT class and passed both the skills testing stations as well as the written National Registry test. She has been taking call with our service during this time period. Please accept this as my recommendation that Alyssa Zemer be hired as a probationary EMT with our service at the current pay rate. So that's what we're looking to, is approve the appointment of Alyssa Zemer as probationary EMT effective immediately.
Do I have a motion to approve the appointment?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Shellen, seconded by Heidi. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Approve Resolution 2022-81 awarding the quote of LED lighting ambulance.
So as part of our ongoing LED lighting upgrade project, quotes were obtained for the lighting upgrades to the ambulance garage. And so we did send out our requests. We did receive 3 back: Beam Electric, Essler Electric, and Rhodey Electric, all very close together. We went from $26.35, $2,300, and $22.90.80. It's also eligible for rebates to the Sauk Center Public Utility, which will be applied toward the project once they're completed. So part of that money will come back to us. So we're looking to approve Resolution 2022-81, awarding the bid for the lighting upgrades at the ambulance garage.
Questions, comments? Otherwise, do I have a motion to approve Resolution 2022-81?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Heidi. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Joe. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. We have no unfinished business. We have no new business. We have a consent agenda, a schedule of claims, unpaid claims of $325,700.25 for a total of the same. We have Resolution 2022-82, accepting contributions of $122.84 from the men's card playing group to be allocated to the senior center, and an amount of $2,397 from the Big Sauk Lake Association to be applied to the park department for the day dock. And on behalf of the council and the city, I want to thank those 2 groups for their donation. Is there any questions about the consent agenda?
What was the new bill that increased our total?
We had, what was it, Nutrient Egg?
Yeah, we had some chemicals that we bought at Nutrient Ag, which we got a discount if we paid ahead of time, so we added them to this claim.
Were you seeing the 322, 622, 32, Joe? Is that what you
Yes.
asked? Okay.
So Nutrient Ag went up from like $82 to $3,000.
Okay.
And that was to take advantage of $100 and some worth of discount for paying within 10 days.
Sure. Okay.
Any other questions about the consent agenda? Otherwise, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Joe. Do I have a second? Second by Diane. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. We have no informational items, so that brings us to the end of our agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Shallon. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Heidi. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Meeting adjourned.